Hello everyone and welcome back. First, I just want to take a moment and thank everyone who showed support after I posted my first video. People went in and liked and subscribed and commented some really lovely things. To be honest, I didn't expect any of it. And so it was very delightful and I really do appreciate it, so thank you. In the first video, I didn't really say that much. I kind of just wanted to get things started. And so in this video, I would like to take some time and explain who I am and what I'm hoping to do with these videos. So I was born to two illegal immigrants in New York City. My parents are from Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad is an island off the coast of Venezuela. My dad grew up in a very quite rigid Hindu family, and my mom was born Hindu but converted to Islam when her mother remarried. And then when my mom married my dad, she converted back to Hinduism, then converted to Christianity after, and then they both decided to move to America. Well, they didn't really decide when they left, but they decided after they came. And they overstayed their visas. And soon after they had me, and then a year later they had my sister. My sister and I grew up with the influences of both my parents. My dad is very dogmatic and he prays every morning, still does. And my mom had a much more open-minded approach to spirituality in general. I think because she had explored so many other religions, she ended up seeing the level beneath all of them. My mom is also a psychic medium, and so growing up, we just grew up in that consciousness. Whenever we would get ready for school, my mom would ask us about our dreams and she would interpret them for us. When I was young, my mom would ask if I was seeing anything. And that was her way of asking if my clairvoyant abilities had opened up. And there was very much an expectation that I would be seeing things, but I never did. Not that I could remember. But anyway, growing up, I was very much an introvert and turned inward. I focused on school and academics, but then around 13, I got really interested in some deeper questions that I didn't think school was answering. And the first thing I did is I went to the religion that I was born in, which is Hinduism, and tried to understand it deeper. I even became vegetarian because of my study of the scriptures. That continued for all through middle school, high school. In high school, I started studying languages. I started Spanish and Chinese. When I went off to college, I continued studying Chinese and ended up majoring in Chinese. While in school, I also explored other religions, kind of like my mom. I started studying Buddhism, Taoism, Christianity, Judaism. I also started studying linguistics and comparative religion. It was really a time for me to focus on a lot of my interests academically. In the end, I ended up graduating with a degree in Chinese and a double minor in religion and linguistics. But when I graduated, I realized that there were not very many jobs for people who had my background. And the jobs that did exist around the language, they didn't really resonate with me at the time. While I was in high school and in college, I had actually taught myself to code. And I realized people pay people to code. And I don't know why this did not occur to me before, but I pivoted over to software engineering. I did a boot camp out in San Francisco, flew out there, and ended up staying there. When you're working in the tech industry, they expect you to be empirical about everything. It's a very data-driven field. Logic should prevail. And so things that are obviously not logical are kind of looked down upon, ridiculed, criticized. There were many times at lunches when people would make fun of the very things that I was interested in. So I describe that period of my life as being in two closets. The first closet is the gay closet, which everyone made a big deal out of, and it is definitely hard. But the second closet, the metaphysical closet, or as my really good friend likes to say, the broom closet, that one was a lot harder to get out of. The weird thing is, at home, I was still closeted in the gay closet, but very open about the metaphysical stuff. In my professional world, I was open about the gay stuff and closeted about the metaphysical stuff. It was a type of self-preservation. I think both closets are. But why would I tell people things that I had been fascinated with for so long when I knew that they would just ridicule it? So I didn't. Rather, I ended up going to conferences and meeting a lot more New Age people. I remember not fitting in very well. It was odd to feel like an outsider in the tech world and then go to the spiritual spaces and also still feel like an outsider. But in the end, it really helped me get in touch with what my motivations were and my ultimate spiritual goals. It helped me realize that I wasn't practicing what I was practicing for the sake of phenomena and impressing people. It was really about the growth of my soul and my spirit. Eventually, I ended up meeting a teacher who really changed my perspective on what it means to be a spiritual teacher and what a spiritual life looks like. And I'll be talking about that in another video. But me and her ended up becoming really close friends. To this day, we're BFFs. She really showed me how to integrate spirituality into the day-to-day. For years, I just did the tech thing out in the open, and then in private was studying all my metaphysics. And I would talk about spiritual ideas with very close friends, people who I knew wouldn't reject me. And that's kind of where I left it for almost a decade. Meanwhile, I was very miserable at work, almost always. It wasn't that I didn't love code because I had taught myself to code. I had a passion. It wasn't just a hobby for me. I'm not the type of person who just cashes in and chases money. I always look for a deeper meaning in things, for better or worse. And for years, I didn't really invest in my self-expression as it came to my spiritual self. In my mind, it was almost like there were two modes of being. There was the public persona and then the real me. And they never really mingled together. And again, it was really an issue of self-preservation. There was a deep feeling of me not taking myself seriously. Like I knew the ideas that I was studying was serious. And I knew that they were deep ideas. But for some reason, I was never inclined to truly practice them in any real transformative way. Over the years, I ended up going out and meeting my friend, my teacher turned BFF friend. And I visited many times. And whenever we visit, there's not a lot of metaphysics happening. We're not doing a lot of spiritual things. We'll talk about it here and there, but mainly we're going out to eat, we're watching TV, we're doing home projects. The last time I visited, though, it was a little different. And we didn't mean for it to be different. Just one day, I was a little distraught because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my career and my life and if I was ever going to find a partner. And I just went to her and I was kind of panicking. And she said, hey, let's just do a guided meditation. So she walked me through this meditation to envision my perfect life and try to see what that would look like. Halfway through that meditation, it was hijacked by something else. And it gave me some very clear guidance that I needed to get a move on things, that I was kind of dilly-dallying with the tech stuff and kind of the worldly stuff, but my primary work here is spiritual. And it was very clear. And after I finished, I knew that I was changed in the sense that I was close, I could feel my purpose better. But then afterwards, I left, we did some laundry. It wasn't anything crazy. A couple of days later, we went out to a Thai restaurant and we were eating with people that I had not met before. And so I was seated at the corner and there were 3 new people around me. I just thought, hey, I love Thai food. I'm just going to sit there and enjoy the food. Well, it turns out they're all 3 pretty metaphysical people. One guy has a podcast with his wife, and the other 2 actually had a podcast together. and they would discuss spiritual matters. And so the one guy who was sitting right next to me, he was asking all these questions, and I could tell he was a seeker, and he really just wanted to know. And the guys across from me, they were they were also full of any number of intricate connections between ideas. And so as the conversation continued, the guy next to me would ask questions, and the guys across from me would answer. And sometimes I didn't follow the answer, but I was just trying to stay quiet and eat my food. And then all of a sudden, the guy next to me would ask a question, and I could feel the answer queue up in my mind. And then he would ask another question, and I could feel it queue up again, another answer. And I was not going to say anything. I thought it was going to be rude, it was going to be impolite. I felt like it was going to undermine what the guys across from me were saying. And who cares what I think about anything? For so long, my spirituality has just been internal and private and well protected. And I was certainly not going to be talking about it in public with strangers. But there was a point where he asked one question, and he wanted to know how he could know. He wanted to stop being skeptical and really have direct experience. And I don't know what possessed me. I just turned to him and I said, "Do you want the answers?" And he kind of looked over and he's like, "Yeah, sure." And I proceeded to just channel through a whole bunch of information for him. And as I did it, I could feel the resistance inside of me, the part of me that wanted to be polite and not hijack the conversation. But it just had to come through. And by the end, my physical body was hot, and I had just the worst headache. It literally felt like this band across my forehead was just on fire, and I couldn't make it go away. So I look over to my BFF, and I was about to ask her. I was like, "Hey, can you kind of check in and see what's going on with me?" And before I even get to say anything, she looks over to me just casually, and she's like, "You're not okay." Anyway, she ended up kind of putting me back together once and then again. But that didn't go away for about 2 or 3 days. And it was that experience that I think that was the door opening to me actually doing these videos. I think it was the first time where I had a choice to stay hidden and impact nobody, and hoard what I've learned and the information I get for myself out of fear, basically to stay closeted, or just put it all out there. And for me, that is very scary, because there's nothing like saying that you're a psychic that seems to be carte blanche for anyone and everyone to immediately and without reason completely dismiss you and your career or your efforts. Immediately people think you're a charlatan or a con man. And of course I don't want that. I don't want people to think that of me. If anything, I've tried to live my life with as much integrity as I could. I don't want to harm people. I don't want to take advantage of people. But in our culture, especially in America, or I guess in Western culture, there isn't a lot of space for those type of experiences. And where there are spaces is either really new agey or really religious. And I'm neither of those things. Especially when you consider my time in the tech field and just hearing the judgment and just how casually people would dismiss well-intentioned people. Why would I want to come out at all? Society has a framework to understand gay people, and it's kind of normalized now. But still, if you say that you get divine guidance, or, I mean, basically you're hearing voices. People think you're crazy. There was just a lot of resistance that I had to overcome in between mouthfuls of Thai noodles. One moment I was caught in an old version of me who let fear limit how he shared himself and who he connected with and how he connected with people, completely to this other upgraded version of me who was going to say whatever needed to be said because that was what needed to be done. I knew after that experience that I could not go back to my old life. And because I had done that meditation with my friend prior, only a couple days prior, there was this strong awareness in the front of my mind that this work is the reason that I'm here. That was in July of last year. And since then, I decided to stop working for a bit, cut back on school for a little bit, and just focus on the spiritual life. And finally do the meditating that I wasn't ever doing, and taking myself seriously. I think that was the real shift that happened. And the first 2 months, it was really full of phenomena, and I felt like I was walking on clouds. And it was so easy to just tap into something new on the daily, some new insight about how the universe worked or how souls worked or this kind of thing. Then afterwards, it stopped being like that, to the point where I thought, oh my God, I did something wrong. I messed it up, I blew it, and now I can't do this anymore, and probably should start looking for work again. And then I realized I just turned inward, and I started to process my life and my trauma and my struggles and all the things that were holding me back from moving forward. And I kid you not, it happened in reverse chronology. In the beginning, it was things that happened recently. And then it was things that happened in my late 20s, and then my early 20s, and then in my late teens, then my early teens, then childhood. And it was over the course of months. The last 6 months have really shown me that my entire life was some type of training, calibrating to exactly what I needed to be doing on my path. And when you have that level of knowing, it's really hard to hold on to old trauma or anything like that without seeing the silver lining always. It seems like almost everyone, when they're asked if they want to go back in time and change something and become, a different person, they always say no. Most people, especially if they've overcome something, I think they just realize that they are forged through those experiences, and they wouldn't want to change anything because they love who they are now. And I will say that is one of the things that really opened the door for me, is realizing that when you really love yourself, then everything you do comes from a place of joy. You do it because you enjoy it. Self-love that was the missing key that I only really tapped into it in December, where I realized that had I done these videos a year or two ago, I wouldn't be coming from a place of self-love. And I think that's the only answer. That's the right place to come from. You cannot separate your spirituality from your life. Spirituality needs to be woven into your life. And when you take yourself seriously, or when you take these ideas seriously, you don't act as though they are fun things to contemplate. They actually end up being frameworks by which you live your life. And that really started for me last year. Now, to be honest, making these videos is clearly a calling. And I'm not saying that to self-aggrandize. For those who have experienced callings and know the utter compass needle north that is undeniable and irrefutable and unmoving, those people will understand what I'm talking about. A lot of the people who do this work, who really, really do this work, seems to have known that they were always going to do it since they were kids. And to be honest, that's where I find myself. When I was younger, maybe it was all the Oprah, I always thought that I kept seeing myself on a stage, and the closest I would describe it is like a motivational speaker, which now is definitely not what I want to be. But that was the closest model for what I could map my purpose to. And then I realized the stage is just a symbol for reach. It's a symbol to speak to many. And YouTube now is our modern stage. And as much as it terrifies me to get on camera and have to deal with all the things and worry about my editing or my filler words or whether or not I'm stumbling over my words or, what matters most is that I just turn on the camera and speak to you guys. And truly, truly, I'm doing these videos for myself because I have no other choice. That said, I think I've been underestimating just how important these ideas are. The spiritual ideas, the metaphysical ideas. We're living in a world now where people are really struggling to locate themselves within all the crazy, but also to understand themselves better and to understand their role and their purpose better. I think people are yearning for truth. And I'll say right now, I'm not trying to be some YouTube influencer with, as many followers as I can and as many views as I can. No. I'm trying to reach those who I am meant to reach. These videos are for them. If other people happen to find them and learn something, great. My primary purpose is to meet those who I'm supposed to meet. And I know well from experiences with my own teachers that when you meet your teacher or you meet someone who you know is going to be crucial to helping you along your path, you just know. And so I'm not as inclined to do the fancy things as much. Ultimately, I just want to connect with people who are thinking about the same things I'm thinking about and who either need to hear something that I have to say or can engage with me and perhaps teach me something that I hadn't considered. I've lived my whole life siloed away from community in that sense. And so much of my own spiritual growth had to happen in silence and behind closed doors. Now I feel like there's a need for this kind of stuff. Some of the ideas that I want to share, I've been thinking about for 19 years now, at least. And these are questions that I've pondered a long time, and I finally think that I can offer some guidance to. I will acknowledge that probably because I've had to do so much of this alone, my natural inclination is probably just to treat these videos like writing a book. I decide what I want to share, and I decide what order it's going to come in, and I just put it out exactly as I want it, and then it's done. And that's not true, and that's shifting. I'm realizing now this is a two-way street. I'm only a channel for the information. I'm only bringing through information that is useful to you all. I'd like to invite all of you to share what you guys are thinking about and big questions that you guys are pondering. And if you'd like me to speak on a subject, please let me know. Also, I'll be experimenting with the format of these videos and all the fancy editing, but I don't want to lose the feeling of you guys just sitting with me and we're just chatting. I kind of like it. If it doesn't work for you, please let me know. I don't know. It certainly works for me. I don't know where all this is going to go, but I do know that this is how it starts. Like I said in the last video, it's a journey. And I would also like to encourage any of you who resonate with any part of this story, whether it be hiding away because you feel judged or feeling like you have to stay, in your version of whatever the tech world was for me, where stability and safety and security is, and you can't actually express yourself freely and speak your own truth. Please do. I really do think that we're in a time in our lives and a time in humanity where we need more of that. We need people to speak their truth. One of the things that I'm very clear on now is that I'm walking the path of a mystic. And if there are others who are walking the same path, I would love some companionship. I think fundamentally that path is a solo path. And that's just the nature of it. But it's always nice if we have moments of reprieve where we can share and grow together. Hopefully this channel can be a place that can contribute to that. For those of you who stuck around to the end, thank you. Hopefully this gives you a little bit more context as to who I am, and I know I didn't go into too much detail in all the places, and some of the more spiritual ideas might still be amorphous to you, but I will be explaining more of them in the following weeks. My goal is to put out one video a week, probably on Saturday or Sunday, and I really do look forward to hearing all the things you guys have to say. I really do appreciate all your support. Until next time, have a great week, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.